So, welcome. I'm very glad that I got the chance to speak at Drupal Dev Days here in Vienna. I hope everybody had good fun yesterday at the party. And it's cool that still there are people coming here. So I'm pleased that, So note that this talk is labeled as a core conversation session. I hope this will be more of a workshop and less of a lecture. So please don't hesitate to chip in, even during the introduction I've prepared, and even more so afterwards. Quick side note, I'm not too keen about pictures of me floating around the internet. If you take photos, then please contact me before publishing them. My name is Lorenz. I'm employed by and also one of around 50 owners of a small Swiss cooperative, which is publishing the weekly newspaper Wochenzeitung WOTS. We publish carefully produced and researched journalistic pieces. For operations, we do not depend on big cooperations. Instead, we try to motivate people to pay for our content. Part of this motivation is to send out emails, and they should at least look decent. We understand that we need to dedicate a fair amount of attention to the web and other electronic channels, and at the same time, keep up the quality of our print products. So we maintain the necessary know-how in-house for many aspects of the production process. That includes a small team of developers looking after the website, mobile apps, and internal tools. I am part of that team. So, to the objectives of today. I actually wasn't involved when HookMail happened. The only reason somebody is able to trace this backstory is because of the excellent project documentation in Drupal. I mostly just used git log and git blame, which, by the way, should be named git fame or something like that. I prefer that. Git blame to find the relevant issue numbers where the discussions took place. Even in the early days, many commits contain some form of reference to issues on Drupal.org. So Drupal is very different nowadays than 15 years ago, when the groundwork for the current Mail API was laid. I think it is time to look back and check whether the conditions and constraints which informed the decisions made back then still hold today. And then let that information guide the adoption of a new API, which hopefully will lead to better user experience and also better developer experience for transactional email out of the box. Today, I'm going to question some of the decisions which did lead to the current API. Also, I will show some approaches currently taken in Contrip. My goal is to do this in a sober and fair way without much judgment. I see my role to summarize the current state of the mail in core and Contrip. My goal today is to motivate and moderate the discussion about its future direction. I am determined to capture whatever is coming up here from your side and feed that back into the issue queue. So when talking about transactional email, it is useful to divide that in two activities. One activity is building the mails. That means piecing together the content of an email from the database records. And the other activity is delivering mails, which includes sending mail via SendMail or SMTP or using a third-party provider. The current API for building mail has its roots in Drupal 6. So most of the work was done in 2 issues, resulting in the current Mail API. Issue number 82499 was the patch which introduced HookMail. It originated from the requirement to send email in the user's language. So the idea was to enforce good practice, which means first, making sure that mails are easy to localize, and second, making it difficult to forget that mails might need to be localized. This patch landed in June 2027, after only 2 months of rather intensive development. The introduction of HookMail drew quite some criticism, because before the patch, it was possible to just build up subject and body and call Drupal mail, and afterwards, the mail body is supposed to be generated in a HookMail implementation. So it was like separate from the actual business logic. So the sites I'm showing here are just from the issues, so nothing made up. So the current API for sending originated in Drupal 7. Most of the work was done in issue number 331,180, which introduced mail plugins. The new system was necessary in order to satisfy requirements of the new Drupal 7 code registry. That was like auto-loading, but a bit more archaic. In Drupal 6, it was possible to replace the mechanism to send emails by pointing the SMTP library config variable to some PHP file which defined the function Drupal mail wrapper. However, that approach to pluggability broke when the code registry was introduced. The architecture of the registry didn't tolerate duplicate functions anymore, even if they were defined in separate files. Development of the Drupal 7 mail plugins already stretched over 1 year, from November 2008 through December 2009. So the new architecture introduced a way to use separate plugins for mails originated from different modules. Some people voiced their concerns that this might be over-engineering. Also, people pointed at the problematic requirement that plugins need to be able to split headers containing mail addresses. This isn't that trivial. Only recently, a patch landed in Drupal 9.5 to make the default PHP mail plugin work with mail addresses containing a comma in the name part. Also, the new mail system interface brought together a mail and a format function, method, into one type. So this design did lead to criticism as well, because it isn't obvious on how to provide separate implementations for one or the other activity. So this diagram here summarizes on how email is handled currently in by Drupal core. Well, currently it's since Drupal 7. In order to send a mail, some controller calls into Mail Manager via the mail method. The arguments include the module machine name, which is a string, some mail key, which is also a string, the recipient address, the language code, and an array of key value pairs passed to HookMail. Mail Manager calls the HookMail implementation of the module specified in the mail arguments, passes the message to HookMail alter to give other modules the chance to modify headers and message, then figures out which mail plugin to use, and finally formats and sends the message using the return mail plugin instance. In order to prevent the cache metadata leak, mail is built and sent in a separate render context. So maybe here, are there any questions? So then we go to Contrip. Many sites are using Contrip modules partly or fully replacing the mail building and the mail delivery process. Recently, when I took the screenshots, it was actually 666 modules. Then one of the most prominent Contrip modules is a mail system. It allows site builders to configure mail plugins without having to use Drush or hack YAML files directly. Many mail extensions suggest or even require the mail system plugin because it allows to configure different implementations for the format and the mail methods. So Drupal core still doesn't support generating HTML emails out of the box. Therefore, many modules try to close that gap by providing themers or site builders with the necessary tooling to build HTML mails. The most traditional one is probably the MyMail module. This module overrides the PHP plugin and supplies a format method capable of rendering the mail content using a Twig template. A very simple approach, which I imagine might be quite popular among themers. It looks like the Drupal 8 port does lack some features compared to the Drupal 7 version. Then there is Drupal Symfony Mailer integration module. That one requires developers to create mail builder plugins. These plugins are conceptually equivalent to HookMail. Mail builders map to Twig templates by a name convention. Overriding these templates is possible, but discovery of the proper name can be a bit hard in my experience. Then there is EasyMail or Easy Email, which focuses on site builders. Any module can declare the email it sends using an email YAML file, which is a little bit like a root's YAML file. That file lists mail keys and expected parameters. EasyMail uses that information to generate a list of mails whose templates can be overridden from within the site administration UI. Email overrides are stored as config entities. So that's for the building part. For the transport part, nobody is crazy enough to implement SMTP from scratch in a module. So custom email transports normally are based on some other PHP library. There are 3 libraries around which seem to be popular among module authors. That's PHP Mailer, Swift Mailer, and Symfony Mailer. PHP Mailer covers SMTP quite well, while Symfony Mailer additionally adapts nicely to various non-SMTP transports, like web APIs. Swift Mailer is the predecessor of Symfony Mailer. It is end of life since 2 years, and therefore it shouldn't be used anymore. So, now I'd like to lead over into the discussion part. In order to give it some structure, I will try to start it with 3 proposals. The first one is, so that's an existing issue from Sasha. This issue tries to introduce Symfony Mailer as a dependency into Drupal core, and additionally wants to introduce an experimental mail plugin so we can start using Symfony Mailer in a very controlled environment for courageous people who want to use the transports which are included in Symfony Mailer core already. So that's more or less the current state. The issue is on needs review. It went through a couple of iterations. Yes, so that's probably first step in a direction we want to go. So there should be a microphone now somewhere. Just if someone has like comments or questions about that, pass the microphone around. Let's see what happens.
What's the benefit of Symfony Mailer in core? Can you give a quick summary?
Yes, so the benefit is we will instantly have SMTP out of the box. So for that issue here, we instantly have SMTP out of the box. We can use SendGrid out of the box. So it just enables all the transports which are built into Symfony Mailer by default. That issue here doesn't go the whole road to HTML mail, but we still have a starting point. So, and Symfony Mailer is a component in Symfony core. So it isn't like a Contrip, which was like Swift Mailer before. It's maintained in the Symfony tree, so in github.com/symfony/symfony. And we can like, so it is safe to assume that we won't have many problems with that, like compatibility issues with other components from Symfony. So that's the main rationale. And compared to PHP Mailer, for example, which would be like an alternative, it's much more mature. So from the functionality it brings. Yes.
So I guess new dependencies cannot be introduced during Drupal 10. So the migration path for deprecating HookMail will be like in Drupal 11, you can still use HookMail, and Drupal 12 will force you to use the new API, or I don't know.
Yeah, to be discussed.
It's kind of the opposite. You can only introduce new stuff in minor versions.
Okay.
You can only remove stuff in major versions, basically, short version. So we can definitely add new stuff in Drupal 10.3, 4, whatever.
So this can maybe be merged for Drupal 10.3, 4, no?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm confused because that's just a transport layer. So what's the proposal for HookMail instead? Like, I mean, did we talk about this yet? Okay, I see. Because yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Just to add, we said that with Symfony Mailer, you get SendGrid like out of the box, but another benefit of doing it is that Symfony have a load of wrappers that would be quite trivial to add for other mail providers as well.
I have a question. Does this provide you like redirect of emails as well? Like, you know, instead of sending it to the actual users, like on your own like testing environments or development environments, can you disable, like, is this part of Symfony Mailer? Because people use like Contrip modules for that as well, right? Just to turn it off.
So two answers. The first one, with that patch here, we only get the transports built into Symfony Mailer. So additional transports are not possible because that patch doesn't do the dependency injection properly by design. So we want to have like the real or my goal is to introduce the whole transport stack properly in a follow-up issue with dependency injection and stuff like that built in a meaningful way. And that one is just calling the static transports from DSN, I think it's called, and that only respects the built-in transports. And the other question was, Daniel?
Does Symfony Mailer has support for disabling sending?
Yes. So the way to do that, like disabling, is using the null transport. With Symfony Mailer, if you use it like the full stack, then there's an event which is fired during the transport phase. But that hasn't the power to like cancel mails, except maybe throwing an exception or something like that. So redirection is possible, but you have like to rewrite the headers or introduce a redirect transport, something like that, if the full stack is in core. Yes, I have another proposal for HookMail. If you want, we can get a step further. Where's my mouse? Here. So I'd like to ditch mail builders. So no HookMail, and if possible, also no things which are conceptually equivalent. So we can use like the business logic and the sending of the mail, so we can have them at the same location, not at several places anymore. For very, very easy cases, we could just use the standard email type, which is coming with Symfony Mime plugin, and using a mailer instance, which is in a dependency injection container, and send it somewhere. So that's so to say the very easy things should be simple to implement. That would be the proposal. If there are any fans of HookMail, please get the mic.
I wouldn't call myself a fan, but it's a very simple API and it has been working for 15 years probably, something like that. So I would be careful to throw everything out of the window. I guess we need to have very, very good reasons to do it.
But you can still have HookMail which would implement this API internally. So.
Yes, so the services give us plenty of options. If you want to separate your mails to a service, many implementations like Commerce are the workaround HookMail. Like Commerce has a service that builds a mail and then passes the built mail into HookMail just to set it again as the mail body. So it makes sense because it's annoying and hard to pass in proper context to HookMail. And it's hard to find it's a hook. You want to have the service testable and so on. That's basically what I had in mind as well. Just use the email class directly. The main concern I have is backwards compatibility, because I have no idea how, if we introduce this in, let's say, Drupal 10.3, what's going to happen to the mail system module, to HookMail alter stuff that basically break the second we switch to this API. I'm not sure if you want to like try to fake at least the HookMail alter, because HookMail is okay. It's your decision. When you switch to this new API, you can stop using it, that's fine. But everyone implementing HookMail alter expects, like, if you customize mails from the user module, that will stop working when the user module switches to this new API. So I guess you have to implement a fake HookMail alter, get all the properties out, pass them to the alter hook, set them back on the mail object, and kind of figure out the way around that.
Yes. Well, that's why you're here. So hope we get a solution for that. Yes, HookMail alter will be hard to get rid of. So one idea I had would be to like gradually restrict the options you have in HookMail alter. So say perhaps first we try to restrict the headers you can change in mail alter, or we restrict that you cannot change the body. I don't know. Maybe that's possible. But then you have to have another option. So we need to give users another option to re-implement that functionality with another API. So that's probably the chicken egg problem we have to solve somehow. Or have like a list of properties we will convert from the mail structure into a fake mail message and back again. And everything which is outside this allowed list of properties will generate warnings or something like that. So that list of properties we could already introduce gradually in point releases, and then at some point declare that doing something which is not in that list of properties will just trigger exceptions. That might be a way to go about that.
The problem is that the properties in there are not standardized and not documented.
Exactly, that's why I say we probably need to introduce an allow list of properties. So
yes, but if you do so, then you break Contrip modules. Like if you do that, you break SwiftMailer and how it handles HTML mails. And because it has a format key that core doesn't know about and doesn't have to know about, and we cannot break that until we completely replace it. So I'm not sure if you can limit what you can do in there.
You mentioned Symfony events. So events are dispatched for everything that HookMail alter can do also?
yes.
Okay.
So if we like introduce the full Symfony mailer stack, then the message event is triggered during also from within the transport. So after the transport is constructed, like the SMTP or SendMail or whatever SendGrid transport is constructed, then from within that transport, the message event is triggered, and then you can even replace the whole email object from within that. You can alter headers, you can alter the body, and you can add like the text part if there's a HTML part and vice versa. But in order to get there, we need to introduce the whole stack. And as soon as we introduce the whole stack, we have that problem with the backward compatibility with HookMail alter.
So I guess another path is to keep two mail systems and in Drupal 11 deprecate everything HookMail alter, and modules have to switch to that, no?
Yeah. So we could require Contrip and custom code to provide an event subscriber if they have implement HookMail alter. So that would be the the other way. Instead of trying to emulate HookMail Alter, just require, if you have HookMail Alter implementation, you need
you need to remove it before Drupal 11, no? Basically.
Yeah, you need, in addition to that, you need a mail message subscriber, which does the same thing. So then we have, we require customer Contrip code to do a little extra effort during the transition phase.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not sure if we can force them, but we can try, I guess. What we can do is we can introduce the API. So if you just have the API, I mean, if a Contrip or custom module wants to then use this, they're free to do so. It works, it's there, we have the events, you can do everything you want. You can basically let Contrip and custom battle test this, and then we switch core HookMail implementations, possibly only in Drupal 11 then, and then have that requirement, this double thing in place. That could be an option, I guess, yes.
That's it. I guess the next thing is
Okay.
getting to the issue.
Just capture that.
I guess sort of one sort of problem with the events is how would you know the context of what kind of email this is? Because in HookMail Alter you have, it's called key, right? The name of the email encode. Like here you don't have that concept anymore. So what's the idea behind that? Like if you want to alter the, I guess, subject or body.
Yes, so in Symfony Mailer, what I researched until now is that they also have concept of multiple transports. Like you can configure multiple transports, and you choose the transport when creating the mail by adding a X transport header. So that's their way to tag mails for different things. So maybe it would be an option to standardize some headers and add them to the mail object, and then maybe remove it in a event subscriber if they're not used anymore before sending it out, in order to specify mail keys and stuff like that, so that event subscribers can decide which mail should go which way.
We could maybe have a factory for the email class that basically forces you to provide those two parameters. Then it's standardized for you. You get email factory, new email parameter, like before, module and key. And then they're set as headers on the email object, and you get that back.
Yeah, the point is we need somehow something to have that to be able to specify or to be able to differentiate in subscribers, and I think we have to figure out how we do that. Another option would be to use the PHP type system and require every module to subtype the email class. But that only makes sense if you have like logic in that class, otherwise it's pointless.
One other question. So I think hook email, don't you just return like a list of bodies, like a list of text, and then it concatenates it with, I think, new lines or something like that? Yeah. So like, I mean, that's another level of API sort of that does not support, like altering a T function. You can just replace it completely?
Yes, so that's the very, very, very basic thing. I have another slide with a little bit a more involved one. which is a short version of the commerce receipt email. You see here I opted for a subclass. We can like do that or leave that. And there is a renderable method. So that's like, we can call that however we want, which is supposed to be rendered as soon as, or inside an event subscriber in order to have like the render context properly. And then you have everything you need from the theming system. So you can like alter the content and stuff in pre-process, post-process functions, or just supply your own theme. So I think that's for HTML emails, we probably want to use just the rendering system, which is known by everyone here. So I think.
Yes, I just saw that Symfony has a template email class as well that ties directly into Twig.
Yes.
And you could have a similar version that's built on our render array, maybe, yes.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes. So what they also do in the framework bundle, in Symfony Mailer framework bundle, is they have an event subscriber which is with the priority 0. And that one is calling into something which is called body renderer or something like that. It's in the MIME component. It's not in the Symfony Mailer component, but in the Symfony MIME component. And that has the responsibility to turn the Twig template into HTML. And we could just write something like that, which turns render array into HTML, basically. And we also could register more than one body renderer's event subscriber. But if you do that, then it's important to have like the type system in order to be able to switch whichever should be used. Yes, other.
Would it make sense to build this in Contrip? So that you say, okay, we built this Drupal core email API replacement system in Contrip, and then we try to push Contrip modules to pick it up to kind of battle test it there before starting in core. Because once you make a change in core, you cannot change the change again easily, right? Because the APIs should be not changed that often, and in Contrip you're a little bit more flexible.
I have good news for you. There's many Contrip modules trying to do that.
Is one of those modules your module then? Are you doing that?
The body renderer thing?
In general, like the new email system that you envision, are you maintaining
So
one of those Contrip modules?
I have a module, it's called Post Office, and it's doing that things. I just use it as a playground in order to try what can I do it in a minimal form? It's grown too much. It's not minimal anymore. So should use that again? But yes, there is Contrip trying to do that.
I guess you need to force it and say, this will be the future Drupal core mail system. Put this on your agenda and make it the official mission of that module so that it is clear that it aims for that.
Sasha?
From my experience, it's very hard to get a larger Contrip module into core. There are very few instances where you manage that. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of reviews. It makes sense to experiment in Contrip, but like build a complete system and then just getting that into core is hard. And it's easier to to iterate in smaller steps and build it up in core. We have systems in core. We can do experimental modules. We can do experimental APIs. We have things in place. Now we have module life cycles. I think that fits better in core. And to get people to use it, you need to have it stable in Contrip as well, or they will not use it and they will not get feedback. So I think we have the systems in place in core now to be able to build it there as well. And again, there is the mail module. I've not used it much myself, but it is a lot. There's a lot of flexibility and powerful features. So if you want to experiment with that, that's definitely an option.
Yes, so I have a third thing which I'd like to discuss, and that would be having only one transport in core. So like I talked about that that this was already a bit discussed when the mail plugins were introduced. So the question is there, like, do we have important reasons to support more than one transport in core out of the box?
I want to ask that you clarify this. You mean that you can just configure one, right?
Yes.
And I guess to add to that, at one point in time, like you can, on your development environment, you can use the null transport, and on testing, you can reroute something to somewhere else. It just means there is one configuration string that's used at one time, and if you need more,
yes,
you replace the service and do your own thing.
Yes.
I mean, as maintainer of the mail system module that supports those configurations options, I never really used that like you want to send mails from one module via SMTP and then other mails through a different system. It's currently a bit different with the formatting, like plain text mails, HTML mails, but it will be a different layer on top of that. Mm-hmm. And just the transport, I see very little use case to have more than one transport active at a given time. And logging could be a wrapper, like the mail log module could wrap something, could implement the event to just log the mail away if you want to log and send it. So that's all possible, and you don't need a separate transport for that.
Okay, so we have 2 minutes left. Is there any other thing we need to discuss? Otherwise, I'll be around. Yes, it would be great if we could land the Symfony Mail patch like the initial one at some point. There's a meta issue which dates back to the 100,000 times. And if you want to contact me, if I vanished here, you can contact me over my plain text mail form from Drupal.org. So anyway, I read my mail in plain text, so doesn't make a difference. In that case, thank you, and thank you very much for your inputs.